Welcome back. With me now, the CEO of GenYouth Foundation, also former VP of Fox Business News, Alexis Glick. Alexis, thanks so much for joining us from New York.
Terrific to be with you.
So you had this great study that just came out called The Wellness Impact Enhancing Academic Success Through Healthy School Environments. Let me ask you this. What jumped out to you the most from this study?
Well, we put this together because we wanted to study something that we call the learning connection, and that is the impact that nutrition and physical activity have on everything from learning, academic performance, behavior, attendance in schools. And essentially what we found, we hosted a summit around the learning connection in September of last year in Washington, D.C. And what we found is that there's all this science that indicates that if a child is properly nourished, if they're eating a healthy breakfast when they go into the school building and they're physically active for anywhere up to 60 minutes a day, it can have an enormous impact on their learning. And in fact, as you'll see in this wellness impact report, which folks can go online to check out, one of the studies in there was done by one of the world-renowned leaders in studying brain impact on nutrition and physical activity. And he took a look at the impact of a child's brain when moving for 20 minutes, when walking versus sedentary. And you can just see how a child's brain lights up. So the aha moment here that we need to share with parents, educators, politicians is nutrition and physical activity are key to learning. We have to share the message of the learning connection.
So let me ask you this. You're a former VP from Fox Business News. You look at any business, there's always sort of one thing you go, hey, if we just focused on this one thing, it would have a huge, huge impact. What is it in this study? Is it the nutrition piece? Is it the get out and move piece? Or is it something else?
Well, the first thing we need to do is we need to make sure that kids are eating breakfast in school. And I know there's a lot of concern about, are we going to be overfeeding children if we're feeding them breakfast in school and they could potentially be fed at home? Here's the issue. There's roughly 55 million kids in this country. About 36 million of them participate in the free and reduced lunch program in this country. Yet breakfast is offered to almost 90% of those kids in this country, and yet about a third of that 36 million kids are participating in breakfast. Now, why is that a problem? I'll tell you why. Two major reasons. One is the fact that over 17 million children in this country are food insecure. They do not know where they're going to get their next meal, and the school building accounts for 50% of their average daily caloric intake. Two is, in many of these schools across the country, in some cases we're giving kids lunch at 10:30, and in some cases kids are eating lunch at 2:30. Could you imagine having to learn and sit in the classroom and study math and science and history and have nothing to eat until 2:30 in the day? So I think number one, we've got to make sure that our kids are eating a healthy breakfast, and if we can do that in the school building, that is a huge victory.
Talk to me a little bit about ROI. I look at so many state budgets, and it looks like one of the biggest line items in any state is going to be that K through 12 education line item. And yet this nutrition and getting out and moving piece just seems to be like, it's really not that important. And yet you're saying, hey, Chris, this is super important. Talk to me about specifics on what's the ROI from productivity and things of that nature if we really made an investment in nutrition.
Chris, you know me, I'm an economic kid. I'm an economic and a political kid in my background, worked on Wall Street for a decade before being in media. This is a huge economic crisis. It's a productivity crisis. We're spending several $100 billion a year on obesity in this country, not to mention the cost for childhood obesity. If you look at every major multinational corporation in this country, and I work with America's dairy farmers, the National Football League, and with several of the largest multinationals in the country, every single one of them is worried about healthcare costs. They're worried about the impact on their labor force in terms of productivity, absenteeism, you name it. It is a huge healthcare crisis. So if we can address this issue inside the school building and make sure that our kids are getting nourished, that they're getting up and they're getting active, we will guarantee that we have a workforce, okay, that shows up at work, that is healthy and has the ability and capacity to learn, and that we have a military, a readiness of potential candidates to join the U.S. military, because it is one of the top concerns among the military in the United States.
Melissa, I want to ask you this. We have a situation here specifically in North Dakota that's taken place right now. Everyone's calling it Milkgate. Now, we spend about $1.8 billion per biennium on K through 12 education. One of our representatives proposed $560,000 to help fund the mid-morning snack, a milk snack. You work with dairy farmers, and it got shot down. I want you to talk about if this is a good, in your opinion, a good and or bad investment, and why in this mid-morning snack or milk program.
Let me tell you something. It is the best investment. The best thing I've ever done, to tell you the truth, Chris, is work with America's dairy farmers. It was all happenstance. I used to cover the story of what was going on with farmers across this country in the depths of the recession and how many of them had to multi-mortgage their properties and the issues of input costs, among other things. Let's get down to the brass tacks. Having low-fat and fat-free dairy and having milk as a fueling up drink is without a doubt one of the most important things we can do in this country, and we need to continue to make sure that it is accessible and offered in schools. I just took my son out to Notre Dame about a month ago, and one of the key fascinations that we had going into Notre Dame, he's 11 years old, he happens to be a kid reporter for Sports Illustrated, is we went into their athletic facilities and they have these milk containers all over the athletic facilities, and they're offering it as a refueling drink for some of the best athletes in the country. Why we wouldn't be offering that to our kids on a daily basis is crazy. Why we wouldn't consider that a priority. So as far as I'm concerned, it's one of the necessary food groups to encourage. We need to make sure it is a part of the plate as it is today, as it used to be the food pyramid. And we need to make sure that we're giving it to our kids. It's
Alexis,
a no-brainer.
I want to continue this conversation with you. We're going to have a web exclusive with Alexis. Please go to our website, 630pov.com, to see that. Coming up in just a moment, Representative Cory Mock, who, as you know, sent out this fundraising email for the North Dakota Democratic Party about, hey, Republicans don't want milk for kids. We're going to visit with him about this. And as always, we appreciate your feedback. Again, go to our website, 630pov.com. We'll be right back.